Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Okay, we are about to have some fun. It's not often that we get the chance to sit in a room with a high-powered CEO of a publicly traded company, get a peek behind the curtains as to what goes on, as what it takes to lead an organization of that size and that level of influence and that level of accountability to places like, for example, Wall Street. And at the same time, factor that into our discussion here this morning about love, energy, audacity, and proof. Burton Goldfield and I met a number of years ago. He is the president and CEO of TriNet, the aforementioned publicly traded company, about a $4 billion sort of a company. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the second $4 billion company that you've spearheaded. So we don't see that sort of thing very often. Burton originally, you don't strike me as the stereotype of the typical engineer like I was talking about earlier, but he is an engineer by training, came out of IBM, has been in the technology world for a long time, and is really a phenomenal leader. He is an extreme leader in so many ways. And one of the reasons that I was really excited to invite Burton to spend time with us and share his wisdom with us and allow us to pick his brain a little bit is because it's very unusual in my experience, because I've worked with a lot of CEOs over the years in my wanderings. It's very unusual to hear a CEO get so passionate about his customers. And I've heard so many great stories from Burton about his customers. When I was writing Love is Just Damn Good Business, Burton was one of the first people I went to, and I said, so who of your customers do you think really emulates what I'm writing about in this book? And he connected me with a couple of them who then became case studies in the book. He's a fountainhead of knowledge and wisdom, also happens to be really funny and really brilliant. And we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. I'm not going to stick Burton up here and put a microphone in his hand. We're going to sit up here together. We're going to have a conversation. I've got a few questions for him, and you are absolutely 100% invited to participate in that conversation. So anytime along the way when we're chatting up here and he's sharing his knowledge with us, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts of any sort, they're all welcome. The only thing I'm going to ask is before you say anything, just wave down a microphone and we'll make sure you get a mic in your hand so we can memorialize you forever in our video. So with that, would you please give a phenomenal welcome to our friend, Burton Goldfield. Thank you, brother.
Man, yep.
Have a seat.
Great to see you.
Have a seat. All right. So let's start with some of the basics. Can you just tell us a little bit about your story?
My story?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I am an extreme fan. I'm an extreme fan of Steve's. In 2004, he put a system around what I believed all my life. So I actually call it planets circling the companies that I'm involved in. I like the idea of an architecture or a process, but I had always believed in the things that Steve talked about, and I read the book and I just went, oh wow, the characters are real, the story is a great story, and the message is clean, easy to follow, and phenomenal. So I have no idea where we actually met, but I know it was right after the book came out, and I am just such a big fan of Steve's, and when he calls me, I come running, because that's what friendship is about, and it's just phenomenal to be here. To see all of you in the room, there has never been a more important time in my lifetime for leaders to step up and make changes. This is a crazy world, And it does take the uncomfortable moments, the oh shit moments. It does take the motivation and incentive to do something important. So I'm born and raised in inner city Philadelphia, the most unlikely CEO you've ever met. I am an introvert, INTJ, according to, I'm an INTJ. Why do I stand up in front of audiences, in front of investor conferences, in front of the 3,000 people at TriNet? Because I have an unbelievable belief of two things. One is being part of a team is great. I love being part of something. And two is we're all here to make a difference, and hopefully a positive difference. So for me, it's a sense of belonging. And I was a computer programmer when I got out of college, and that was in the 70s. I was a terrible programmer, but there wasn't many of us out there, so I could easily get a job. My actual degree was biomedical engineering. I worked on the original portable cardiac monitor. By the way of saying portable, it was the size of a toaster. So that was portable back then, but it did serve a purpose, the Holter monitor. I got out of college and was able to get a job quickly, not in biomedical because it was a very new field. In fact, I was the first graduating class at Syracuse University, but in programming computers. And the rest of my life was all about belonging to a team and feeling like that team was making a difference. And in each case, I was unbelievably lucky because the companies I was involved with all grew and became important in the businesses they were involved in. And nobody should be lucky 3 times in a row. I spent 14 years at one company. I'm with this company for 12 years. So a lot of people believe that I just wait out the naysayers. I'm there. I won't let go as long as I believe that what we're doing is important. Moved to California because I figured at that point in the 70s, being in Philadelphia programming computers was not exactly the core market. I moved to Palo Alto, California, and found myself wandering my neighborhood among the icons of the times, including Steve Jobs, Gasset, and others, that were starting to see what could be done in the world with computer software. So I've been involved with 3 companies, and one was a company that did software development tools called Rational Software. We sold it to IBM for $2.5 billion. One was Hyperion doing budgeting and planning, which was sold to IBM for almost $4.5 billion. And now we have this little company called TriNet that I started with 300 people. And we were a little under 100 million, and now we have 3,000 people, and we're doing $4 billion in revenue, and I'm having more fun than I can ever imagine. So
it's really a striking coincidence.
I know, I'm a lucky
keep
guy.
going from one company to another.
It's not me. It's not me, Steve. I am just a good picker of companies. That's the difference.
Well, so when you and I first connected, you were pretty new to TriNet, I think.
Yep.
The first time that we met face to face, anyway. And so it's been really kind of amazing to see your growth. And I remember when you went public, rang the bell, the whole thing, you know. And I think when there was a time where I remember you guys had about 5,000 clients. Now, before you say anything more about that, just give us the high-level overview of what TriNet does and the clients that you serve.
So we support, from an HR perspective, 18,000 companies in the U.S. And we do it for some of the most important companies in the country that are working really hard to change the world. And they're mostly small, medium businesses, and they're growing quickly, and we provide benefits, we provide HR, we provide payroll, we provide the software platforms, and we become a partner to these companies to help them grow. And we're in very specific verticals, including life sciences and technology, professional services, and others, where we can truly help attract and retain the right people, where we can give advice on where to put different operations, and ultimately be a part of the growth of those companies. And There's many of the well-known companies and hopefully many that will be known in the future. I was telling Steve, I came in last night and visited one of the clients, it's a few miles from here, that is growing fish protein in a laboratory. And their vision is, we will never kill another fish, we will not drag nets and ropes across the ocean, we will not have artificial farming of fish, but we will do it in factories with a level of purity, and fish will become sustainable, it will become plentiful, and it will be available worldwide. And if you don't think that is a big vision, I couldn't sleep last night. After I spent a few hours there, I just could not sleep. So I have the fortunate opportunity, and I spend most of my time, which Steve kids me about, with my customers. People like Ralph Clark at ShotSpotter do gunshot detection in the major cities. I go over and they have these sensors that are the size of a dinner platter. They work off of solar and the cellular network, and you put 8 in a mile territory. And when a gunshot goes off in any city, the sound is slow enough that if 3 of these platters pick up the sound, they can not only tell you what street corner the gun was fired on, but they can tell you if it was the first floor, the second floor, the third floor.
Oh my gosh.
And it's being deployed around the world. And I go over there, and to Ralph's dismay, I will take those sensors apart, and I will look at the circuit boards, and I will look at how he's using the cellular technology, and I will generally destroy one of them when I'm there. But he will not stop me because I cut his paycheck. So, one way or another, he has to let me do it. But watching a company like that, all kidding aside, grow, they become public. They're still a client of ours. And their newest thing, which is what I believe great people like the people in this room will end up doing, is he's taken the technology and he's put it in Kruger National Park in Africa to stop poaching.
Wow.
So just spending time with Ralph, you can look him up if you ever hear him, and I can go on, but ultimately the company that I have today is a reflection of the entrepreneurs that are doing great things around the country and around the world.
So are there any clients that you guys started working with when they're small companies, kind of under the radar as far as the public is concerned, that we now might know?
So I was at CES in Vegas. If people are into technology, I would recommend someday you go out there. It is a toy show for me. I go there 3 days, walk miles. I spent time with Jamie Siminoff, who had Ring doorbells a little north of here in Santa Monica. Ring was our client with 9 employees. They grew to over 1,000 and were purportedly sold for $1.8 billion to Amazon. I was there when the Ring doorbells couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi network and the phone calls. Well, what they were doing is, and I learned because it took at that time 9 weeks to get a new board made in China. They were actually building jumpers across the board. They figured out what the problem was and soldering jumpers to make the Ring doorbells work at the time. So there's many other companies like Living Social, and the most famous is Netflix. Reed Hastings started Netflix with TriNet and Netgear and Rally Software, and it goes on and on.
Wow.
So
so you have this this really unique perspective because of the nature of your business. That you're getting a view. You're obviously passionate about your clients. It always just pours out of you. But you also have this opportunity to look under the hood, as it were, and see what makes these companies tick, what makes them thrive and survive.
Yeah.
Obviously, a good HR system is helpful in that, which is what you guys provide. But is there any commonality that you notice among these entrepreneurs? And I'm not asking you to force fit any kind of a parallel to Leap, but I'm curious if you have seen that. I mean, I know these principles are important to you in the way that you lead, Have you seen any of that play out among your clients, whether or not they use the language?
No, absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to leave you guys with the fact that don't believe the press. The world will be fine. We will figure it out together. And these 18,000 companies, many of them are passionately trying to solve the world's problems. So forget what you read in the headline, it sells newspapers, but I am seeing a group of entrepreneurs, a teams of people that are more passionate, moving quicker. A lot of it has to do with infrastructure like Amazon Cloud. When I was in programming, it took us 8 weeks to set up a development environment. So if we were going to set up a development environment, it was 8 weeks of getting the hardware, adding the operating system, putting the testing tools on it, and getting it up and running. It takes 8 minutes now to set up an environment in the Amazon Cloud. You pick you pick the language, you pick the configuration management solution, and you're up and running. So the combination of technology and passion and what people are focused on today, I am incredibly optimistic. I boot up every morning happy, I boot up optimistic, and ultimately I believe we will solve these incredibly difficult problems that need to be solved. When you talk about the culture of the companies, in a lot of ways, people are more resilient today because they're being bombarded with so much information. It was a lot easier for me to hold an opinion when I had one source, or actually two, the Morning Inquirer and the Evening Bulletin out of Philadelphia, as opposed to what comes over the internet today. And I do believe that people are more sophisticated in consuming the knowledge to get stuff done. From a cultural standpoint, we help a lot of new CEOs recognize, many of them engineers, many of them first-generation Americans, how important that culture aspect, how important Leap is to the overall company. And look, Leap works. There's just no question about it. I can tell you 100 stories. I can tell you what I'm doing. Obviously, with over 3,000 employees in 40 offices today, I have to apply Leap in a very different way than I have in the past. I don't know everybody in my company. They know me, but I don't know them. So it's a very different paradigm than when we had 300 people. In the companies we're serving, what I am finding is that the people are self-selecting for the passion of the business. You have to be connected to something bigger than yourself. You just have to be. Nobody stays at a company anymore for the benefits. Nobody stays because of the salary. And the people who try to fight that lose every time. So if you have not created a mission and a vision and a product that is truly going to make a difference, I promise you have a challenge getting people, regardless of the equity or what you provide them in free food. It doesn't work. So what I would say to you is that getting connected to the overall mission and culture of the company is number one in my mind, and I believe that most of the CEOs I'm working with today understand that because it's so hard to get talent. Everybody can get a job. It's awesome. It's an awesome situation. Everybody can pick up and leave. And yet I don't find many people who pick up and leave for an extra a few dollars a month or the free lunch. They pick up and leave because they like the mission of the other company. And I can tell you some great stories about that.
So let's talk for a minute about your dynamics within TriNet. You said a couple of minutes ago, in the old days, you could pretty much know everybody. Now it's a different kind of a game. So how do you, as a leader of a publicly traded company who is answerable to investors and to Wall Street, how do you walk that line where you're taking care of the street and you're not losing your connection with literally thousands of employees?
A lot of it is face-to-face contact. I mean, what Marty said was awesome. I learned so much from her. I'm going back with 3 new ideas tonight. But a lot of it is, I leave here, I'm going to go to Florida where we have a large organization. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go to Boston. I'm not going to come home for a week and a half. And I have an awesome wife of 38 years who puts up with my craziness. And I'd rather have you home once every 2 weeks happy than have you here 2 weeks in a row miserable. So we cut a deal. And
parenthetically, what is your philosophy of travel? So how many years have you traveled?
I've been traveling
30?
35 years.
Okay.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so what is your factoid?
You mean my...
your baggage?
Yes. I haven't checked a bag in 35 years, but I don't believe in checking bags. As an engineer, I analyze the variables, and when I get off a plane and people are shocked, when they are shocked that their bag is not there, and there's a 17% chance of your bag not being there, why are you shocked? So if you're willing to lose your bag, check your bag.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised when it's not there. I have decided that I want my bag every single time, which means sacrifices on what clothes I'm going to take.
One pair of underwear you travel.
Well, you know, we were deciding how many sides do underwear have, but that's not for today. It's not today's discussion. But ultimately, to answer your question, there's nothing like the personal contact. You get people in the room, you talk. If I had my dream, it would be to wake up every morning, take everything out of my brain, and put it in the heads of 3,000 people in my company. Because the knowledge is the power to bring that vision together. Without the knowledge, without understanding, well, why did you do that? Why did you do this with the stock? Why did you say this to the street? And I'm starting to do TED Talks, because how do you start talking about equity and capitalization of companies to people who know nothing about it? You have to do it in short seminars. You can't get to the punchline. Now, how many of those 3,000 people will watch my TED Talk on equity and capitalization of companies? I'll tell you next year, and I'll let you know whether that video was worth it. But we've actually set up a studio right in my office where I can do 8 to 10 minute talks on all the subjects that that people want to hear about. And
so I'm gonna make a guess on something here.
Sure.
So you have 3,000 employees.
Correct.
Let's put the customer bucket aside for a minute. That's 18,000 companies. That's a challenge in and of itself. In the people that you're leading within TriNet, my guess is that even though you maybe over a number of years you'll have face-to-face contact with everybody, when you show up at a TriNet site or at an office or at a project, people notice that and they talk about it.
Right.
And the word spreads about Burton being the kind of guy that shows up. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate.
So there was one. I know we had a conversation a while back. So I don't know if this is fresh in your memory, but it stuck with me. I just can't remember the details. Something about you showing up for an office barbecue somewhere. Do you remember that story?
I show up for office barbecues in Reno and all over the country. Saturday night is our annual party in Bradenton, Florida. I haven't missed it in 12 years. Last Saturday night, by the way, I was on the road last weekend, was Reno, Nevada, and it was just an amazing event just to thank the families around our employees, because they're working so darn hard. What we do is very hard, and for those of you in HR in the room, know that you're dealing with the human emotions, and we're dealing with 330,000 humans every single day. So
it's a lot of humans.
Yeah. So, but I have my challenge is we just had an all-hands meeting. We had earnings 2 weeks ago, and I do an all-hands meeting right after that, broadcast live around the country to every office. And we do a survey after every all-hands meeting. Now, I'm not supposed to say this, I rarely read the positive comments. I read the negative comments. And my goal is to have every single colleague in the company happy. Now, my team thinks that's a little bit insane. But in the end, I want to believe that you can create an environment and a culture where people feel safe, where they enjoy talking to each other, we already have a very high rating on being aligned around the mission, but if you're around people who are nasty all day long, you can try to be connected to the mission all you want, but at the end of the day, you're not very happy. So I try to build the next all-hands meeting on the comments from the last all-hands meeting. And people in Anonymous comments can be pretty interesting, let's just say. You have to have thick skin. You just have to. But that's okay because I love the challenge. I absolutely love that part of the challenge.
Yeah. So what if you're taking this idea of cultivating love, for example, that's a big part of who you are. It's not anything that's explicitly stated within TriNet, and yet it exists. I remember one of the things you told me about that barbecue was one of the employees said to you, tell me if my memory is correct. He said you were sitting, just standing around talking at the barbecue in the parking lot of the office building, and he said to you something like, "I can't believe you're here."
So I think CEOs get a bad rap. I don't want anybody to cry for me, but in the end, there is a little bit of people feeling like it's incredible that the CEO is showing up. I feel like it's disrespectful not to show up. It just doesn't make any sense. So it never did, and the best ideas come from people with the primary data. So that I will tell you, one of the challenges I had when we were acquired by a big company was there was 13 levels of management between me and the front lines, and people were asking me to make decisions. I couldn't make decisions because I didn't have the primary data. And guess what happens when an email gets passed up 6, 7, 8 levels before it gets to you? There is nothing real about the data in that memo by the time it gets to you. And I would go to the front lines, I would go into meetings. Of course, I didn't copy the 13 managers, and I would get yelled at because I was not going to sit there and ask permission. But without the primary data, how do you make decisions? And in companies, particularly bigger companies, it's easy to do stupid things. What I tell my people is, if something seems stupid here, it probably is. Don't leave it alone. It probably is really stupid. Trust your instincts on this one. Raise your hand. Figure out a way to get it fixed but you have to have that primary data. And in a perfect world, you would want the people with the primary data to make all the decisions, not somebody 13 levels up, not somebody in a room in a large city in New York making these kind of decisions. And there's nothing, the companies that are successful are shared leadership, where the people with the primary data make the decisions. And if you can go into a meeting and you don't know who the boss is and who the team is and who the VP is, I believe that's a company that will be successful. Over the years, what I have found is the people who come to my office and say, I'm a leader, promote me, I'll take care of everything. Your problems will go away. And I say, the interesting thing is I'm not that smart, but I have one definition of a leader, and it's having followers. And you don't have followers. So you don't meet my definition of a leader. You may be a thought leader, you may be a hierarchical leader, but you are not a leader in the company. And part of love is being able to bring that emotion out from every colleague, every teammate, that allows the information to flow that you can get the result that the team is looking for.
It's creating that safe environment.
Safe environment.
You're growing a lot of vagus nerves.
We are. The whole side of my head is Vegas.
So I'm curious about this. And by the way, if you have a question for Burton, just let us know. We'll get a microphone to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious about if you look at Wall Street for a minute. I'm guessing that they don't come to you as a CEO very often and say, "So, tell us how the love is going on at TriNet." Right? They're interested in the bottom line. Would it be fair to say they really don't care about that at all, or am I being cynical?
I think you're not being cynical, but I look at that as an advantage, not a disadvantage. I look at it as an advantage because whether it's the board or whether it's the investment community or whether it's the analysts, they have a specific set of metrics. They don't care how you dress people, what you ask them to do, deliver a result. And the fact is, with Leap, we can deliver a pretty good result. So I don't go into these meetings with analysts and tell them, you should read Steve Farber's book. It's really going to change your life.
You
I mean, I could. But what I do talk about is that the most important thing to me, a leading indicator of success, is who you're hiring and how you're training those people. And what's important to me is, particularly in a growing company like ours, is can you attract great people who will take it to the next generation?
But is Wall Street, and I know that's an overgeneralization to say Wall Street, but it's the best we can do. Is Wall Street understanding the importance of, forget Leap for a second, are they understanding the importance of what you're saying? In other words, are they recognizing that culture is the right culture is what leads to the right talent, which what leads to the right results? Or are they just cutting right to the bottom line and that's it?
I haven't had those conversations. What the conversations are, can you build an enduring company with sustainable results? So for me, I can build that culture to deliver result, and I'm probably different than many CEOs. I enjoy talking to everybody, including the investors, because the challenge with investors is the time frame. It's not the result. They want a big, successful company. Now, whether I can do it every 13 weeks, that feels like every 13 days, that's where the conversation gets interesting, because inevitably you don't always have good quarters. So in the same room with the same people, I go from being really smart to really not so smart. But I know they have put a framework on it, and they're going to express their opinion. So at one level, I'm in awe that they're investing in me, this kid from Philly. On another level, I give them the vision of the company, but the culture itself is not something that I've spent a lot of time talking.
No.
Maybe
So
I'll bring you into one of those meetings.
Yeah, that'd be fun. If you're a brave man.
After a very good quarter, I'll bring you.
Okay, cool. Please.
Ross.
Could you introduce yourself to everybody, please?
I'm Ross. How you guys doing? And I'm not recovering from anything, I promise. Hi, Burton. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I spent 14 years in the Navy. And I spent the years on ships. I spent years on shore duty. And what I found in the Navy is, we're a brotherhood, we're a sisterhood. We're part of something that makes a difference every day, right? And I loved that feeling. When I was out on the ships, there was nothing like it. I would have never left the Navy if I could have stayed forever. When I became a civilian in 1999, then and even today, it shocks me, it stuns me how the leadership of companies or the people in the company are more about, in many instances, not in all, not in the company I'm in now. I love, actually, the company I'm in now is a revelation, quite frankly, in all my 20 years of being a civilian. But in a lot of companies, people are always asking, what's in it for me, as opposed to what's in it for us and what's in it for the customer. And that, again, I've worked for two companies since I've been a civilian that this is not the case, but all the rest of them it is. How do you get the leadership team to, from the top down and the rest of the company, how do you and your companies get people to have the same mission and have the same passion for the mission, moreover, than just what's in it for me, or how do I do this one thing specifically?
So I share your feeling about being part of a team. That's why I can never retire, because they're my family, they're my team. We have a little bit skewed view of the world, I'll be honest with you, because if they're going to hire TriNet, they're getting the best benefits in the world, they're getting the best service. So by virtue of them bringing us in, they already recognize that their employees, their colleagues are really important. So I do believe we get the best of the best to work with. So if not, they'd say, fine, we don't care what benefits we get. We don't care about the HR support. We don't care about the systems you're going to be using. So I do think the companies we're working with, some of them in the room right now, are phenomenal companies to begin with. And I do believe that most of the CEOs, I was with one last night, is very open-minded. They think I'm a little bit crazy and extreme, just like Steve is, but they take something from every one of the conversations. And the last thing I'll say is, I believe the people in this room will be those next CEOs and will start companies and will start businesses and will have heard, all the discussions that are taking place in this room and others, but it's not going to happen overnight. And in the end, it's about results. So I don't see Wall Street as the anti-culture. I have a job to do to deliver the results to Wall Street, and I believe I can do it through a great company that cares about its people, who have a common vision and mission, who are connected to our customers, and I am going to do everything I can to never be that poser he talks about. So if I'm going to ask them to do something, I'm getting on the same plane. If I'm going to work 3 weekends in a row, or if they're going to work 3 weekends in a row, I'm not going to be somewhere else. And I think that there's a future because it comes down to humanity. It's what you said. I've never met you before, but after your first few comments, we're brothers. There's no question we get jazzed over the same thing. I know I go to work and I am worried every day that I can live up to the expectations of my team. And that's tough, but that's when you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I have a good friend who passed away who was in the military, and we used to have incredible conversations about leadership. Exactly what, and I'm happy to talk to you over lunch, but he taught me so much. I have friends that are extreme rock climbers. Todd Skinner, who also passed away, we used to have these conversations. He would laugh. He'd go, I get notes from all over the world to join my rock climbing team. And he goes, they tell me how great rock climbers they are. He goes, I don't want good rock climbers. I'm already a good rock climber. I want people who know good jokes. I want people who don't smell bad after 14 days in a hanging tent. That's what I want in my team. I already can figure out the route up the rock. So there's so much.
By the way, I have no idea what I smell like for 14 days.
14 days,
in a hanging tent.
Yeah.
Now we have another question.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Burton.
Introduce yourself, Jason.
Oh, my name's Jason.
Hi, Jason.
With 18,000 companies, that's a lot of CEOs and upper management. How do you coach them when they hit their OSM moments?
Wow. I wish we could do more. To be honest, Jason, we're just getting started on giving them the infrastructure and the basics of how to build their companies, how to compensate fairly, give them the employee handbooks and the ideas that they need to build on. And I would say I'm deeply involved in 200 of them, but that's a drop in the bucket out of the 18,000. I wish we could scale that to all 18,000. I've been personal friends when they're with us and when they're not with us, like Jamie, and everything from helping them develop their sales compensation plans to figuring out, what they should do or what they should look for in attracting and retaining people. I believe that core values and motivation are the sole two things you should hire for, that you can teach knowledge, skills, and experience. People look at me like I'm crazy. In my early days, we took COBOL programmers and made them C++ programmers. We were told to fire all the COBOL programmers and bring in C++ programmers. We retrained the people. Why? Because it's really hard to find people with the right core values and motivation. So I wish we could do more. I don't believe that we're doing deep penetration into helping these CEOs solve all of their problems. I think we're a part of the solution, and as they get bigger and their needs get greater, there's more visibility and more help offered. So, yeah.
We'll go here first and then back there.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tim Bussey, and I am CFO at Zag Technical Services, an IT consulting firm in Silicon Valley. And I just want to point out a couple of things. I'm here because I had the good fortune to meet and work with Claudine when she had her last real job, and we spent actually several hours together in my office while I would mostly listen to her crazy ideas about what she wanted to do next in life, which she is now doing, and no coincidence, sitting over there with a big team from Vox, who's one of her first clients. And at one time, Claudine was talking about this conference, and as Claudine usually does, I just thought it was Claudine talking, but she was trying to get me to come here, and I looked at the brochure, and then I saw that Burton was also part of the program, which was, in my opinion, made it an absolute must-attend event, because I can honestly say these are two of my all-time favorite people and absolute consummate professionals. And the reason I know Burton is because in my previous job, I was COO for a nonprofit in Silicon Valley Education Foundation, and Burton was a board member there. And Steve, you mentioned the notion about being present. Board members at nonprofits do so in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they just write checks. Sometimes they just get their name on the website, whatever. Burton was the show-up guy. Burton would come to events that we had that were at the craziest times. One of our initiatives at this nonprofit was education technology in the classroom. And we would run these pitch games, Shark Tank-like pitch games. And it'd be great to have world-class CEOs as part of the judges. Burton would, of course, show up. I remember one time he came, the event was at Google in Mountain View at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Burton has to, if you know the Bay Area, he had to commute across the Bay from their offices, which is about the worst commute in the Bay Area. And he shows up, right on schedule, 5 o'clock. And, when we're done a couple hours later, as usual, I say, "Thank you, Burton." And he looks at me and says, "Tim, when you need me, you just let me know where and when." And that's, and he says so with such authenticity, that I know he's always the guy who's going to show up when you need him. And that's in addition to doing all the things that you mentioned already, Steve, that he's got to do on a day-to-day basis, right? But further to TriNet, so it wasn't just Burton showing up. Burton would also dedicate his senior people to come to our nonprofit and teach us how to do other businessy things. I just want to add to the way you characterize TriNet, a great corporate, but also a great nonprofit partner as well, mostly because of that guy sitting next to you.
Oh,
Right.
thank you.
Right back there.
And what do you like about Steve?
Then I know you.
Hey.
Everybody, I'm Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Also a TriNet shareholder, and I want to see this thing go through the roof. But how do we do it with a company without a ton of name recognition? I was happy to see the People's Matter campaign on
Thank
YouTube.
you.
How has that worked ingratiating yourself to these companies, and are there any more ideas to get your name out there from a social responsibility standpoint?
So it is a challenge, and we are a small company, believe it or not, at $4 billion. It's a challenge to get brand recognition, and we are trying to do that with our People Matter campaign, and we've had the support of Annie Leibowitz, who did the photography, and we are working very, very hard to get that top of mind in CEOs so that those folks say, "Hey, let me talk to them." That's all you try to do. And this year, I think that you'll see additional investment in the brand recognition. I have the right person for it. I'll tell you a quick story. It was, I hired somebody out of Disney, and I said, "I want the brand recognition and the brand identity of Walt Disney Company." And we're sitting at a lunch, and he says, "Sure, no problem." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, my ad budget is is $250 million a year, and it took me 11 years, so I need about $3 billion, and you will be a household name." And I said, I convinced him to come, which was one of my best-selling jobs in my entire life, and I started giving him a few dollars. I said, "What's it going to cost me for a taste? How am I going to get this going?" So it's been mostly a bootstrap operation, but to answer your question specifically, I believe the brand recognition is a critical part of getting our message out there, and we will do more this year.
So thank you. So as we bring this conversation in for a landing, I want to preface, I have a question for you, but
Sure.
let me just say, there's a beautiful kind of full circle thing going on in this room. Because, Burton just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that he has some clients actually in this room. Well, LeapGen,
yeah.
our sponsor, is a TriNet client. So there's just some beautiful symmetry to that somehow. And also, I want to say how grateful I am, and I'll say it on behalf of everybody in this room, how grateful we are that given your schedule in running that company and all the travel that you do, that you're actually spending the entire day with us. It'd be lovely if you could spend all 3 days.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're here for an entire day is really wonderful. It's a testament to who you are.
So what I would love to just close this session with is we are all in this room. We have won already. There's nothing anybody in this room has to prove to anybody. We are the luckiest people in the world. And if you start from that baseline, it frees you up. You don't have to prove anything to yourself, to your mothers, to your families, to your spouses. Just by virtue that we're having these conversations, that you're here for these couple days, you have to understand how extraordinary it is. And the opportunity to come down here, it was like Tim was saying, there wasn't a question. If Steve calls, I'm here. And to meet all of you is a true honor for me. And I think the problem is everybody forgets the fact how incredibly lucky we are. And I wake up grateful every morning. There is nothing, I wouldn't trade places with anybody. I spent the holiday with my wife, and we were talking, I'm 65, and we're talking about, well, what are we going to do for the next 10 years? And we started laughing, and she said, you have your health. You can't wait to get to work every morning. I'm happy. You're happy. We're going to do the same damn thing we did for the last 10 years. And that's literally where we came out of the conversation. The true story we had some downtime where we didn't travel, and our kids did Christmas, so it was awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Burton.
you. Yep, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're awesome.
It's great to see you. It really is.
Burton Goldfield.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.